Okay, welcome to BFREE Monday night call. So we're doing the 6 weeks of skills and we're up to week 2, which is talking to people. So it was really funny when I wrote out the title for this. It's like how to talk to people, and it's like it seems like a bit of a weird thing to be training on because you'd think it's quite simple, but sometimes it can get weird, or we can make it weird. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm just going to talk about some ways we can go about sort of reframing how we're approaching and how we're talking to people with our Isogenics business. And then also just look at some of the scripts and stuff and use some of the tools that are there. So if you've got any suggestions or input as we go along, throw it up in the comments. But tonight's call will be about 30 minutes. So I'm just going to share my screen just so we've got... You guys see that okay? Just to keep me on track a little bit. So how to talk to people. So the first thing step 1 is don't be weird. Like we talk to people every day and then all of a sudden we've got a solution to offer people and then we can just make it really weird, especially when it's people we know. So the first thing is just don't be weird. Just relax about the whole situation. All of a sudden we can put pressure on a certain outcome being achieved, or we make it mean something more than it actually does, and we can just get weird. And I definitely got weird at the beginning, and I see a lot of people get weird. Put your hand up if you felt yourself get a bit weird when you've had some conversations. It's like all of a sudden I'm just this fucking non-human, just like, yeah. So that's but it's an important thing to touch on because everybody you enroll that then starts sharing this is probably going to go through the same thing. So if we can shortcut that for people, because for some people, if they're sort of, sensitive to that, they might have one weird conversation and that could be enough for them to be like, no, this isn't for me. So getting our head around and educating people about this stuff early on is super important. So as part of not being weird, like listening to these audio books, if you haven't, write these down if you haven't listened to all of them. So there's GoPro by Eric Worre, there's Icebreakers by Big Al, and then there's the 4 Agreements. So GoPro and Icebreakers are sort of network marketing specifics, and they just literally touch on phrases and ways of talking to people that make it less weird. And they're ways of, it kind of creates some context for the conversations you're having. Because in any sort of dialogue or any sort of communication, the context of this communication is just as important, if not more important, I believe, than the content. Like what's being said, sure, that's important, but the context of what's being said needs to be addressed. So GoPro is a really good book for helping you sort of create context around the whole conversation. So you're not just kind of shooting from the hip randomly. And then the 4 Agreements is just a really good book for just like everyday life, but especially in our business around not taking things personally and reframing the way we're actually going about sharing the gift of Isogenics. So before you get into any scripts or the what to say, the what, like the how is really important, which is the point I wanted to make here. So how you're coming across. So just check in with, when you're speaking to people and I'll go on to the next, understand what you're actually asking people. Because we're not actually asking people to sign up. We're not asking people to start a business. We're not asking people, I'm going to roll with the chat as we go. Great books. Yeah, I know. I read the 4 Agreements twice in one day. I read it in the morning and then I was like, holy shit. And then I literally read it again in the afternoon. So if you haven't read that book, get on it. And the others are just super practical. But understand what we're actually asking people. So at no point are you asking people, especially in the initial conversation. Eventually you get to the point where you're asking people, so do you want to give it a crack? But initially when you're reaching out and you're speaking to people, all you're asking is if they want to take a look. You're sharing something with them. Would you be open to taking a look? You're not saying, do you want to do it? Do you want to sign up? Do you want to do this business? Do you want to do this cleanse? It's like, this is what's happening. Would you be open to taking a look? Because you just want to get people used to the concept of saying yes. And then and then he talks about it in GoPro, setting them up for the next exposure. Because most people will sign up to something on or after their 8th exposure to it. So if this is the first time they're hearing about something from you, statistically, like 1 to 2% of people actually get started. in those first 1 to 3 exposures. And so understanding that means you actually want to get a lot of little exposures in a shorter period of time as possible. So you don't really want to drop like that initial conversation, that's an exposure, and then they're open to taking a look, and then they might watch a video or jump on a call or whatever, and then it's like, cool. And then they might have a 3-way call or whatever. So there's lots of these mini exposures happening, and that takes pressure off the initial conversation. Because, so Joe, a bit of pressure. Yeah, awesome, Trudy. I'm glad it landed. So it's like, and it's not our job to convince anybody of anything. Like, yes, we can improve our skills. So how we show up and communicate, we can do that more effectively. Awesome. But at no point are we ever trying to convince anybody of anything. Because even if we're doing it subtly and we're really good at it and somebody does sign up, if they've done it because we've convinced them or we've manipulated something so that they've done it and they don't actually want to do it from their own internal drive, then they're not going to be very successful with it. So just taking the pressure off and understanding that all we're ever doing is asking people if they want to take a look. And truly embrace non-attachment. And this is something that I have to practice, especially when you're speaking to people that you care about, because you're like, part of you really wants them to say yes, especially if it's friends or family and it's like you want to help them with their health or whatever. It's like there's part of you that really is like, please sign up. I really want you to sign up. But if you're going in with that energy, like people will feel us before they hear us. So really checking in before you send the message, before you have the phone call, before you're doing whatever you're doing, just checking in how attached to the outcome you are. Because that dynamic can be felt in any exchange. And so really just checking in and breathing and like letting that go. Like, I'd love it if Mun signed up, but if she doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Like, do you know, like, and actually doing that, that's something that I still have to do 5 years in, because I'll be speaking to someone and I can see the vision for how it could fit for them. And I'm like, well, I'm actually pretty attached to like them saying yes to this. And so it's an ongoing process of, and just comment if you can relate to that. If you're like, yeah, I've like you've been really attached to outcomes when you've been having conversations, or you've signed up somebody and you're like, yeah, double PRBs. Like, I really want this person to sign up. And all of a sudden you're wanting them to operate on your timeline. And it's like, hang on a second, we need to check back in with what's actually driving. And it doesn't mean you don't go for PRBs and like celebrate it. Awesome. But if it means you're putting pressure on any individual conversations, it's not a good space to get into. Me today. Yeah, 100%. So it's like, it's really common, and it's knowing that it's there. It's just recognizing, because having that pressure around it can make you resent this business. When you start having lots of conversations where you're doing that and you're forcing things and you're having these conversations that you don't like, and you stack a few of those together, it can make you not enjoy this process. So just really checking in with that non-attachment, because it's a really, before anything is said, again, like this isn't even the what to say, this is the how. It's really important to check in with this stuff, because it drives a lot of the dynamic in how the communication flows, even if it's over Messenger, or especially if it's over Messenger. And then the last thing is just checking in and with what we're making things mean. So often as humans, we have a good habit of taking things personally. So we feel like if somebody says no to us, well, so if somebody says no to taking a look, then they're saying no to us. They're not, they're saying no to taking a look at isogenics. So a lot of the time, unconsciously, we can start to make this mean something about ourselves, and then we carry that energy into the next conversation. So really just check in with what we're actually making things mean. And so like that's where books like the 4 Agreements and doing personal development and working on yourself, you can actually start to like not take things as personally. And then the third part, step 3, is actually check in with your belief, because people will feel you before they hear you. So if you like, especially around the business and network marketing, if you don't actually believe, because you just don't understand it well enough yet, if you don't believe in the business model, if you don't believe in the compensation plan, yet you're trying to convince somebody of how good it is, and deep down you don't actually believe in it, that shit, like, people's bullshit detectors are just too finely tuned for that these days. So it's checking in with what your belief is. And so you don't have to have had necessarily an experience yourself to, like, you don't have to be earning $400,000 a year to believe in the compensation plan. Like, if you truly understand the compensation plan and you've had enough conversations with people that are earning money, that can be enough for you to fully believe it and be like, yeah, I see it, I understand it, I believe it, like, let's go. Because you can also borrow people's belief as well. And that's what I did for a long time. While I was learning in the process, I was still sharing with excitement because I was borrowing people's belief who I trusted. It's all the trust thing. So just checking in and being brutally honest with your belief. Like, say if your belief around the products, like, you've had a great experience, but your belief's only 8 out of 10 because you're like, oh, I don't know about this thing or that thing, or like, go and learn that. Go and listen to a podcast. Go on isaproductau.com. Ask somebody and take the responsibility of building your belief while you're having conversations with people. And if your belief's really low, don't talk to people. Go and do whatever you need to do. Go to an event, listen to a podcast, learn more, have a, like, coaching session with your sponsor or whatever it may be, to shift whatever's in the way so that your belief is there. Because if you're speaking to people and you don't believe about what you're speaking in, it's like if you haven't been using the product properly and you don't feel that good and you're trying to tell people about doing a 30-day cleanse, but on the inside you're like, I feel fucked. My energy levels are drained. Like, it's not gonna work. So just checking in with that before you, and while, and it's an ongoing thing while you're actually speaking to people. And like I say, don't let this be, you can also use this as a roadblock and be like, oh, well, I've been using the products for 6 months. My belief is still only 9 out of 10 in network marketing, so I don't want to speak to anybody. And you can use it as a way to actually avoid getting uncomfortable and doing the do. So just check in that you're not doing that, but really take on the responsibility of going to work and building this belief, and ask the questions. Don't try to trick yourself into believing in something. Actually do the reason I believe so much about the products is because I learned so much about them so early on. So I was like, every little question I had, I went and answered. So my belief in the products became bulletproof. So I didn't have those doubts when people were saying things or this or that. Even though I'd had a good experience, I knew any little doubts I had, I went and found out. Same thing with the conversation plan, same thing with the company. So it's making sure, and there's a whole call on building beliefs. I'm not going to get into that too much now, but as you can hear in my voice, it's obviously a really, really important part of it. I'm just going to, yeah, okay, awesome. And then awesome, Jamie, and that's a good one. So then that's like a belief around the value of the products. So it's like, you're like, yeah, it's great, but is it worth it? And it's like, when you understand what's actually in it, you're like, wow, that's cheap. If I was to go and actually get all of that stuff elsewhere, it'd be much more expensive. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, bring that stuff up and we'll have that conversation, and I can direct you to resources and stuff like that, because those little things, you'll attract people who think it's too expensive. Like, the doubts that we have, we'll attract that in the people that we're speaking to. So if we low key think it's too expensive, we're going to attract people that think it's too expensive. If we low key think it's a pyramid scheme, we're going to attract people that are like, isn't that a pyramid scheme? Like, that's how it all works. And so, yeah, it's just a mirror. It's just a reflection. So with all of those things, that's why, and you can't hide from that. You can't pretend. If you legit think it's too expensive, it's like, wicked. Like, let's go to work to actually look and break it down and do some comparisons and all that sort of stuff, so that you like actually know the value of this and what it provides is far exceeds the price that's being paid. So awesome. That's a big one. And then Jem just said she can send you something. Epic. Tips on letting it go when you're full up with attached. Yeah, borrowing belief. Yeah, Lauren. And that's like where, like, it's so funny. It's like doing your follow-ups can become a spiritual practice because you're literally practicing the art of non-attachment. And then it's a good reflection of where you're at emotionally. You're like, whoa, I'm super outcomes focused. I'm super dependent on all this external shit happening for me to feel good. And it's like, can be a good mirror. And you don't want to get like too caught up in that, but it's like shifting your state, get like all those kinds of things before you speak to somebody. Getting yourself in a state where you feel good is super important. And I'm going to leave it. Otherwise I could speak all day about that. Pack calculator. Okay, sweet. So step 4, to talking to people is actually to have people come to you. And so this is where we live in the golden era of network marketing. Like back in the day, it used to be hard. Like, can you imagine like going door to door and like being weird about it? Like that's what they used to have to do with network marketing. Now we have social media. So we can literally have people come to us. And again, the energy dynamic around people coming to us is so, like the context of that is so conducive to you feeling good about the whole process. So using social media, Kat did a whole call on social media. So go back and listen to that again, stay consistent, use it, and use the templates. And I'm going to do a screen share and show you guys some of the templates as well. But ask for help and ask for guidance. If it's like, well, social media isn't my thing, it's like, cool story. Like if you're serious about wanting to create an income with this and you're not leveraging social media, like you don't have to, people have done it without it, but it's definitely something that it makes life a whole lot easier. And so with that, just be consistent and be you and create context. You can have conversations with a lot of people. If you jump on an Insta story and you're just sharing how fucking good you feel after a cleanse day, you're having that conversation. You know those 8 exposures that we need? That's another exposure. So if somebody's watching your journey, they're getting all these little touch points and exposures along the way. And the more exposures in a shorter period of time, the greater the rate of conversion is. So if you can use Insta stories and you don't have to, that's the thing, it doesn't even have to be full posts all the time. You might be subtle with that, but using polls for engagement and using these kinds of things can have people coming to you. So then you're feeling good before the conversation even happens. Is that all making sense so far? Yeah, sweet. Dun, dun, dun. Awesome. So then the last thing is step 5, like actually speaking to people. So using the scripts and templates. So just comment yes in the chat box if you've used the say scripts on Isagenix Business. Before I screen share, let's see who's familiar with these. Amy has. Who else has been using these? Just comment in the chat box for us, guys. Dun, dun, dun. All right, I'm going to go. So we're just going to have a look at these now using the tools. So literally when somebody's getting started, when you're getting started, like there's scripts for all, absolutely, yes. So these are here because they work and they were put together because with the help of Eric Warre as well. And you can see some of his, if you've read GoPro or listened to GoPro a lot, and then you go and read these, then you actually can, like you can see the flow through. So with these scripts, I'm just gonna bring this up here. We're living in a pretty fast-paced world. Like these days, and put your hand up if you get a phone call that's not planned or booked in, who doesn't answer their phone? Yeah. So if we just start randomly calling people, most people, well, there's a lot of cameras off, but like this is why these scripts are so powerful, because they're so relevant for how we communicate. Even with like our closest friends, it's just text. So there's templates here for if you haven't started yet, if you've already started, when you want to share the opportunity, if you're just testing the waters. So obviously make these relevant for you so they feel good, because again, the energy of the message has to feel good. But use the basic framework and use the principles that are in these. Because if you have some wicked fancy way of doing it, it's like cool. But when you like the magic in network marketing comes when we can teach people to do what we've done. So if we can start to use these and mold these, then we can, when somebody comes and says, hey, how do I share ISA? Like I want to speak to people. It's like, cool. And we take them here. So using these consistently is the goal. There's also scripts for doing posts. If you haven't started yet, if you've already started, and progress posts. So if you like ongoing, so find ways that resonate with you. So if you're doing the Healthy Mind and Body program, if you're doing Yeah, awesome, Trudy. And I'm glad you answer. So I know if I'm ever in trouble, I'm going to give you a call because you'll actually answer. Jamie won't, unless we've booked it in. Yeah, so using these scripts is the thing with network marketing is it's doing the similar thing over and over again. So it's like often we'll come back, we'll go on a business and we're like, oh, I'm a bit stuck, da 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 da. It's like, okay, come back to how well are you using the products and how many people are you sending these templates to? How many messages are you sending out? How many times are you asking people to take a look? Because it is just as much a numbers game as it is if it's quality. So, and David Wood says, it's like, it's not about the time you've been doing it. It's not about the time you've been in. So there are some people here that are in their first month, or some people that are a couple of months in, or some people that are years in. That's irrelevant. It's how many quality conversations you've had. So what's working really well for me at the moment is using one of these scripts, and it's normally about the opportunity. And it's kind of like testing the waters. That's kind of the script that I use. And I just ask people if it's come up, especially if there's been some engagement on a post. And then I just say, I'm just curious, like I'm working with a few people at the moment, helping them create a secondary source of income working online. Like, not sure if that's something you'd be open to, but if it is, let me know and we can catch up for a chat. And that's all I'm saying. And I'm not talking about network marketing. I'm not talking about an opportunity, and that the simplicity of that has been working really well. And then getting on a phone call, because I know I just said before, texting works and nobody answers their phone, but I'm just going to check these. But if only 7% of the communication is words, you can back and forth and put your hand up or just comment if you've had this experience where you're like back and forth on Insta and it's just like message, and it doesn't actually go anywhere, and you end up being like, you spent 20 minutes doing messages and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, and there's this question, you can avoid that headache by getting people on a phone call. So I'm just pretty much like, and this is because I actually have the belief in the posture. So if you're new, it might be setting up a call with your sponsor, but I'm literally like one message. And then if they try to message back, I say, it'll be a bit time consuming, just back and forthing over Messenger. It'd be much easier just to jump on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes. Like, when are you free? And then I'm just starting to have phone calls and doing that. And that is a little bit more uncomfortable, but lean into that and actually have some real authentic conversations with people and get over the weirdness, because if you're hiding behind your keyboard, it's going to be a long, slow, painful grind. Initially, for that initial touch point, of course, wicked, send out the messages, do the posts. But then as soon as there's engagement, let them feel your excitement. 93% of communication is tonality and our energy. It's not the words. So we're literally only utilizing 7% of what's available if we're trying to do it all over Messenger. And who signed up without really knowing what the go was, but because the person who was speaking to them was just super enthusiastic. And like, you're like, whoa, yeah. Like, Rory didn't really tell me much, but he was just like, it's fucking awesome. And I was like, wicked. But if he'd written that in a text, like, it's like, do you know what I mean? I would have been like, okay, tell me about it. Like, so it's getting over that, and then leveraging, the last part about talking to people is leveraging a third party. And this is something that's super important to do on a consistent basis. And I'm going to put my hand up and say it's something I need to work on, because sometimes, and I know Jem could maybe relate to this, sometimes we just want to get the job done ourselves. But in terms of creating duplication, which is where freedom comes, using a third party to chat to somebody is super important. And again, that's just a skill to learn. So what I'm going to do, has everybody listened to the call on setting up a 3-way call? And first of all, just show of hands or just comment who's actually done either a 3-way call or a 3-way catch up. Just comment yes if you've done that. I have a 3-way call tomorrow. Nice work, Jem. Yep, Jamie, nice. Nope, Trudy, cool. So it's just something to, Ellie was amazing. Yeah, awesome, Trudy. It's pretty much like a lot of the people who have gone millionaire and stuff in ISA, they go back to their income graph, and the point where it started was going, the point where it started to do that, they can literally point to that month they started doing three-way calls. So it's something that's worth tracking as well. Like, yes, how many conversations did you have? But how many three-way calls did you have this week? And it's a painful number to track initially because it might be like 0, damn it. Next week, 1. But it's what we measure will grow. If we're not measuring it, there's no focus or intention on it. It may grow by accident, but it's not guaranteed. So starting to actually just record that somewhere is a really good idea. And I'm going to take my own advice on that one. What are three-way calls all about? So Trudy, so there's a Zoom call that just quickly, basically, I'm speaking to my friend, Sarah. Sarah wants more energy and she wants to get abs. I'm like, cool. So I could tell her how Isagenix works, or I jump on a phone call with her and say, I'm just going to get my friend Gemma to explain how the system works better for women. And then I get Gemma on the phone call, and then I just connect those two, introduce them, and then Gemma's doing the talking and sharing her story and experience and that. So you're kind of getting yourself out of the way. So that means, especially when you're new, you don't need to be the expert. So you just be like, somebody says like, hey, can you tell me more about that? And you'll say, look, to be honest, like I'm only just getting started and learning all about it. All I know is I feel amazing using the products, but to get you all the best information, it's probably best to get you to chat to my friend Ellie. She's been using it for like 4 years and she got me started. And then you can get her to chat to Ellie. So I hope that makes sense. It's a very brief explanation. So yeah, that's it for talking to people. What I might do is do you want to just, yeah, definitely. And if Ellie suggested it, take her up on that, Trudy. It's like, and it's so easy for you because you don't have to do anything. You just literally connect them and then listen. It's like, oh, this is easy. So definitely take advantage of that. Yeah, exactly. It's so good. And I'm here as well. Like the people in the team are so willing to jump on and help out. So, all right. Is there any questions, guys, before we wrap it up there? I'm trying to keep these calls to half so they're nice and tight for everybody watching the recordings and stuff. The only thing is I'll post the podcast about three-way calls in the BFREE group. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. I think we're all good. No questions coming through. Did that all land, guys? Is that helpful? Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jam. Dun, dun, dun. All right, Jamie. Should we set up three-way calls for local people who we don't actually meet up with? Who you don't actually meet up with? I'm just going to unmute you, Jamie.
Yeah. So like I've got a couple of people who are interested, but I don't necessarily associate with them very often. So I'm just wondering, we're sort of just waiting for a time to meet up.
Yeah.
So just get on a call with them, even though they're local.
Or it depends. Again, like the energy. Yeah, I love the homework, Gemma. If it's going to be like, say you haven't spoken to someone in a while, like say, I'll just speak for myself. I haven't spoken to someone in a while. That first initial conversation is probably just going to be a reconnection conversation. And then it'll be chat. ISA comes up. I'll share my 30-second story, share my experience. Like before I was using it, I was training pretty hard, but I've noticed my recovery, my energy since I've started using it. It's fucking amazing. And then they're like, oh, and then they ask questions about it. And that's when you say, well, look, to be honest, like I'm still getting my head around all the specifics. So if you want to know like more info, what I can do is I can tee up a time for my mate Tully. He's a physio. He can have a chat to you and fill you in on it. And in the meantime, I can send you a video to watch because that's probably going to explain it better than I could.
Yeah.
Like something like that. So if it's that first initial conversation with somebody can be like, they call it, Michael Klaus calls it the third touch three-way. So it's like there's connection, then there's usually a tool of some sort, a video, so people kind of know a little bit about what's going on, they've got some questions, then you use the three-way call. So that's how it can kind of flow.
Yeah, that's good. It builds rapport as well. And then, yeah.
100%.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Tal.
Awesome. No worries, man. What's my favorite and the whichever video, whatever's relevant. So if I'm speaking to people about the products, I'll get really specific and then I'll say, okay, I've got a video that does this. It's a chiro and his wife sort of explaining how the system works. It goes for about 8 minutes. Like, do you want me to send that through to you? If they're asking about the products. So this is where getting to know the different videos, and don't overwhelm yourself. Like, just pick like 1 or 2 for the products, pick 1 or 2 for sort of the business, the vision. The start website's really good. So don't overwhelm yourself, but just get to know the different tools and then, yeah, use them accordingly. It's like, literally imagine you're a tradie, you've got a hammer, you've got a saw. It's like, you've got to know what a hammer does and when to use it. So it's like asking a tradie, which tool do you use? The trader will be like, for what? For cutting wood or for banging in nails? Or, so it's like, you've got to match. There's not like a one size fits all thing. Cool. Epic. Thanks, Jamie. I love good metaphor. Glad it landed. But like, ask, this is where you use your sponsor as well. When you're not expected to know everything straight away. So you chat to someone. They're like, send me some info. You're like, shit, I don't know what to send them. So you message Ali, send her some screenshots of the messages. Say, this is how the conversations are going. What would you send them? And then Ellie would be like, this video. And you'd be like, sweet, send that video. While you're in the learning process. Because if you try to go and learn it all and do it all, you'll just overwhelm yourself. So just focus on having conversations and then in real time, get support and guidance on it. Epic. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, legends. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording.